Hi, everyone, and welcome back. I am so sorry that it took me so long to record another video. Life kind of got away from me a little bit there. I had finished this right after uploading the first part of it, but I never got around to editing and filming. So here it is. Again, I apologize. I will try to be a lot better about when I upload. I might be moving my upload dates to Friday or even Saturday mornings to make it a little bit easier on myself for editing and filming. But let me know a preferred date for uploads. Like, what day do you guys usually spend time watching YouTube videos? So that may help out as well because I'm just not really sure. I'm just trying to pick a date based on my own schedule, but that can be kind of hard sometimes because I get a little busy. Thank you so much for sticking around. I do appreciate every single one of you and enjoy the rest of this video as I finish up this beautiful earth goddess that we made with our earth friendly art supplies back on Earth Day. And then I will talk a little bit about my. Okay, so here I'm using the Tombow dual brush marker set in the Desert Flora. I really love these colors mostly because of the muted design on them, like the light purple and the muted gray and green. But I also really loved the really deep purple and the super dark green. It really blended in with the earth vibe that I was going for on this project, especially since she, is an earth goddess. But they worked really well. I don't normally work with water based markers. I'm used to Copics, like alcohol based markers. And it was actually a lot of fun to dip my brush into the water here and blend out the markers for a more even coating and a little more value with the markers since it only came with the colors that you can see here, and it just gave me more options with my work. So I was able to blend it out, create more values, get more colors out of it, and kind of mimic that bark texture that you can see here on the trees. And that also served really well for her skin because you can see her legs are made out of bark too. So that worked really well. And I actually really enjoy these markers a lot, and I have been using them since this video because they don't bleed through your pages like the alcohol markers do, so they're perfect for sketchbooks. And it's just something that I've really been enjoying. So it was kind of hard to do this picture because I wanted her to have earth-based tones, but her hair came out a little bit more orange than I anticipated, and I was trying to keep her from looking like poison ivy, especially with this one piece here and all of the branches coming off of her. But that's mainly why I added on the bark texture to her legs. You can see that I'm doing that here to make her look more like a tree and less like human, so she could be more godly and less fairy like. And I also added that to her arms too. As you can see, the bark texture goes halfway up to her elbows. So her hands and then up to her elbows are also made of bark. And it makes her kind of blend in with the environment too, as she could definitely be one with nature in this scene. Okay, and I also added some butterflies here, as you can kind of see with the red blurber blobs that I have. They're not very good butterflies, I will admit that. Trust the process. Just trust the process. Um, but you can see that I am drawing in that bark here that I talked about on her arms. But with the butterflies, I added those as more if she was controlling them, as if since she is an earth goddess, she has control over the environment around her. So that's why her hands out like that. I think it worked pretty well. I would have liked to have done better with the butterflies, but drawing them so small with the tools that I had, the markers were a little bit too fat, and the watercolors kind of bled a lot anyways. So it was really hard to get some details on those butterflies. But going back to the bark hands, I think it actually looks really cool that she has the bark on her legs and her arms. It's kind of like armor. That's what it reminds me of, is armor pieces. And then the bark on her arms kind of looks more like gloves. So she's she's definitely geared up with some armor. And then here I'm adding a little more depth to the riverbank. I am actually still learning how to do backgrounds, so it was kind of hard for me to add in the trees and the river and everything here. But I still like the way that it turned out. But here I'm just trying to add some shadow to it so you can see that it goes down and it doesn't lay fat, lay flat, just to give it some more depth. But I really like it. These water-based markers are really cool. If you guys haven't used the Tombow markers yet, I would definitely use them. It was fun to blend them with the watercolors because you can blend them out with water and it gives you more options with less marker, which I really, really liked because I'm not one to have a lot of stuff around my house. So I like that I can do so much with these markers. I know it is not sponsored. I did buy these markers with my own money. But it was my first time trying them out, so I was just really impressed. Okay, so right here I decided I was going to make it a little more earthly, and I added some moss. And I decided I wanted her, since she was a little bit part bark, why can't moss be growing on her kind of a thing. So I tried to mimic a moss texture here by drawing in some squiggly lines with the markers and all the areas that I wanted it to be dark, and it creates kind of like a shadow. Because I didn't want to lose the green color that was already there. I really liked it, but I did want to add more texture to it. And then I ended up spreading that moss to her shoulders, so it's more like a piece of her rather than something that she's wearing. So I really liked that. And this was actually one of my first times ever drawing moss, so I did have to look at a lot of references because it was kind of difficult to figure out how I wanted it to go into here. But it looks like I moved over to the trees, needed a little bit of break from the moss because I was still trying to figure out how I wanted to do it. Oh, oh my gosh, I remember that. The boards flew up. I have a shorter board next to this bigger board, and it kind of flew up on me because I put my elbows up here, so that was fun. Yeah, but anyways, I just filled in these trees here. They're kind of like weeping willows. I definitely did not want to draw every single branch, so I kind of took these markers and drew a few of them in here to give it a little bit of detail and depth. And then we'll fill it in and make it look a little bit nicer and put some leaves where it's more noticeable. So leaves over here by the light, so you can see it coming down, and kind of keeping it away from the mass area. As the leaves are all clumped up together, you're less likely to see them in detail. So that's why I kept the little branches sticking out here with all the leaves on it. Yeah, I don't have too much to say about the leaves. It seems pretty self-explanatory. I'm just adding in the extra stuff so that it just looks a little bit better. And then I filled in her emerald too because I forgot to shade that in, and it definitely didn't need to be a flat green. So yeah, I'm just filling that in, and one tiny little leaf at a time. Oh my gosh, this process actually took a really, really long time. Something I'm not used to with traditional artwork. I forget how much time is involved with some of it. Now that I've got all the leaves in here, I'm just going to take some water and we're going to blend this out a little bit. Again, just add that depth and dimension without filling in every single leaf that would be on this tree, because that would be a little bit tedious. It's times like this where I miss digital artwork where you can just put in a brush and that brush would draw all the leaves for you. So this was kind of a shortcut that I took with traditional work, just to make the leaves more noticeable where you would see it in the light and in the clearing. the opening that's over here. And we'll just blend that out towards the end of the bark, make it look more natural, or as natural as I can make it look. And then this is where I go back to the moss. I figured I could add some more color to it, like some browns and some darker greens, because looking at moss pictures, it has a big variety of color. Like it has some browns and greens and yellows, and some of them have oranges. And so I just put that in here and took the really dark green and made that more of my shadow. Whereas when I started, the moss in particular was the shadow. So I just went in with a darker green so that I can make the entire outfit covered in moss. And then I just took that water and I blended it out to make it look more, give it more of that moss texture. And I think it works pretty well, actually. Again, I like how these markers blend, how I was able to add the water to it, because it made it easier to work with versus like Copics. You can blend, I guess these are the water-based version of blending. So yeah, I actually really like the moss. I feel like I did a pretty decent job for my first time drawing moss, and it works pretty well. Yep. I just wanted to make sure that the moss looked like it was growing on her. That was the important part that I was trying to get in here. And I feel like I should have spread it maybe a tiny bit more on her legs and on her shoulders to get that growth look in there. Okay, and then here I'm just adding some more details on those tiny little branches that are coming off her shoulders and blending that moss up onto her neck and down onto her shoulder, because I wanted the outfit to look like it was growing on her, not as if it was something that she was wearing. So, and then that helps with the little leaves on her shoulders too. And then we're just going to take this pink and we're going to add it to her skin tone so she looks a little more lively. I think pink is one of my favorite colors to put into a skin tone. And then here you'll see that I'm putting this purple on orange hair. And the fun part about red hair, or even, orange, any orange shades at all, is it reflects back a lot of different lights that you wouldn't expect. So with red hair, you can get some yellows in here, you can get some blues and purples and darker reds, and even like super bright neon oranges. There's just so much variety with red hair, and I absolutely love it. And there's a lot more depth to it, so that is why I added the purple. And then here I'm just adding a little bit more details to the water. I wasn't super sure how I was going to do this. I'm not very familiar with traditional artwork, so I was trying to figure out how I wanted to add in the ripples, and so just adding in those darker lines to me filled my need. But I just went back and started blending out that purple and making it look a little bit better than just the streaks, giving it more of that blended color. But adding purple to red hair is something that I actually learned from an art teacher in college, and it's been my favorite thing ever since then. I just really love the depth that it gives to the red hair and the variety that you have with it too, since the red hues can be a little bit shorter than other color hues. So looking back at this, I do not like the ripples in the water, and it looks like I tried to blend it out a little bit, so that helps. But I feel like I should have added some white or something to the top of that so it's more reflective. It kind of looks flat and dull, and I wish that's something that I had realized beforehand. But sorry, I keep saying but, and I'm not used to traditional work, so little details like that I miss sometimes. I'm working on it. I'm getting better. Okay, so I just add that moss to the bottom here. I actually ended up really liking the way that it looked on her outfit, so I added a little bit around the riverbanks and just to the trees where I feel like it would be growing. And so I did the same thing. I just did those little swirlies with the dark green, and then I blended it out with the water. And this actually became one of my favorite options, is just blending it with water. I was kind of using them like watercolors, especially since I started the painting with the watercolor set. I'm just going to blend it into the brown here and make it a little bit darker around her. The grass was kind of a light neon-y, not really neon yet, but it was really light for a grass color, so I made that a little bit darker too. And then I just went back in and added some pink here because I felt like she still looked kind of dull. I feel like one of the biggest challenges with traditional work is it can look very dull and flat, whereas digital work you can add highlights and shadows later on and just add them to different layers. You don't have to worry too much about the colors underneath. But when you're painting traditionally, a lot of times you can't see those lighter colors underneath. And so here I'm just desperately trying to add lighter colors to the top of that so she looks a little bit more lively. Some of it is showing up, but not in all the areas I would have liked for it to show up in. And then I added a little bit of yellow to the water here just to give that more depth and dimension, because it's not just a plain blue. And I think that's the biggest thing that made it look really flat. It's because I used so many other colors, like the purple in her hair and the pinks on her skin, and the river was just blue. So if anything made it look super flat, I really feel like it was the fact that I just used blue on that for some reason. It's always fun to look at these afterwards because you realize all of the mistakes that you've made and you desperately want to fix them, but it's a little bit too late. It's not like digital artwork where I can go in and just erase things, delete layers completely to get rid of my mistakes and cover them up. I had to learn how to go with it. And then here I'm trying to add lighter colors on top of the dark colors again with a highlighter, and man, it just didn't work. And now I know to leave the highlights out and not to color in just all the dark colors first. I think I need to do it backwards in digital art and light colors first and then add in the shadows. But it was definitely a learning experience. These tools were very new to me. You see, I'm trying all the highlighter colors and it's just not working. But I did really enjoy making this piece because it taught me a lot about traditional work that I've forgotten over the years since being out of high school. I think that was the last time I did traditional artwork was in high school because most of college is digital. Looks like the yellow showed up. Cool. Overall, I am very happy with the piece. I feel like the composition is still wonderful. She looks very natural. She looks in her element. The colors are still presented very well, even though that some of them are a little flat. I wish I would have added more to like the river and the grass behind her, especially her hair. I feel like I should have played on that purple a little bit more and not just put it in the shadows. But overall, I really enjoyed this. It helped me, or it reminded me of all of the important steps that you need to take in traditional artwork, and that it's a little bit trickier. You kind of have to think ahead. You can't add things after the fact like you can in digital work. So it was nice to change it up, and I really enjoyed doing this piece. I, again, love this Earth Goddess. I think she came out really nicely. I may try to do her again later on in digital artwork to get more of the textures that I was trying to go for. That would be really cool, actually. I think I'll do her digital. Give this video a thumbs up if you want to see her done digitally, because I don't think the traditional artwork, my skills could not do her justice. But you can see here I'm just adding some last minute highlights, and that's it for the piece. So I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to hit that big red subscribe button so you can be notified of future videos. I am going to switch my upload days to Friday mornings just to give me an extra day to do some editing and filming, and I appreciate every single one of you. I will link below any tools that I have used. And again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that big thumbs up if you like this video. It was fun chatting with you guys, and have a good weekend.